What is KPI in sales and marketing? Before we go any further, it's super awkward for me to say sales and marketing when we ask the question of the title. So let's go ahead and from the outset, let's reverse those. Marketing always comes before sales. You can't sell something if they don't know you exist. In marketing and sales, you're spending all your time tracking clicks and impressions and likes and all of that stuff when we really need to be looking at something different. Most KPIs really are just vanity metrics that we look and we go, this is really cool. Look at how many people are looking at us. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 5 KPIs that really matter and really move the needle. Growing up, I was surrounded by uncles who were into cars. They loved cars, and they lived in a small town in western Louisiana, and periodically we'd go to the dirt track, but anytime I'd go out behind their house and I would look around and they had cars and they had tractors, they had all kind of stuff that they were tinkering with, and I distinctly remember one car that I looked inside, and it wasn't just the stock dashboard that was there, but it had little gauges all over it. And I just thought, this is the coolest thing. There's gauges everywhere. And as I got older, I realized that there's real value in the gauges, especially when you're in charge of driving the car. You want to know how fast the thing's going. RPMs, maybe not as much and as important, but the speed and the gas gauge, super important. Here's what I'll say about marketing and sales. You need gauges, but you don't need a ton of them. It's super simplistic. And so we need to dive into what those KPIs or key performance indicators, that's what KPI stands for. It's really just we're looking at a scorecard, dashboard for your marketing and sales. Now, before I move forward with marketing and sales, I have also recorded a video that I think would be really helpful for you, and that's understanding what marketing and sales is and how to set up a marketing and sales strategy. Make sure you go watch that video after this one's done so you understand where KPIs fit within the context of an overall marketing strategy. Now, we could have key performance indicators, these KPIs. We could understand what the definition of them are, just like I told you about. We could even put these KPIs into a document in a spreadsheet. But your KPIs are only as good as how much they're tracked and how much they're shifted and changed, and the activity follows what the actual thing says you're supposed to be doing. There are a lot of businesses we've seen, they have KPIs, but they don't do anything about them. They don't work the activity, and they don't track the results. They just have the KPIs. So before we go any further in talking about these KPIs for marketing and for sales, we need to acknowledge that consistency in the activity and the tracking over time are incredibly important. And if you don't have the actions that are spelled out and we're actually doing something about them, and we don't have the tracking or the follow-up to see if those things are actually working, then what's the point of the KPI in the first place? So before we talk about the KPIs, I need you to commit yourself to actually doing something about what it is that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to break out marketing KPIs and I'm going to break out sales KPIs separately because marketing and sales are two separate systems. Marketing always comes before sales. Sales always comes before fulfillment or operations. Operations always comes before administration. We can't build something we're not built. We can't build something we haven't sold, and we can't sell something when they don't know we exist. So we want to start with marketing around that and then start to identify those KPIs. And what's the point of KPIs? It keeps us locked in and focused on the things that actually move the needle. So what are those marketing KPIs that are important? Number one, if we want to ask this question, where have 80% of our clients come from in the past? What does that tell us? That tells us who the best qualified prospects are and what channels or what pools those people swim in. People usually swim in pools. They usually swim in like pools. So like swims with like. And those who are unlike usually don't hang out with people who are unlike. We see that. That's how cultures developed over time. A lot of times if you've traveled anywhere around the world, you walk into another culture and there's a little discomfort there. Why? It's because you're not like them. They're not like you. And so when we're dealing with customers, a lot of times we want to go to singular cultures because that's where we've had the best results. Now, once we've identified what that culture is, that's an ideal prospect, and you go ahead and write that down, what that looks like. There are other things that we want to look at in KPIs, and that is the number of leads. So KPIs is usually going to be around numbers. It's the number of leads we generated from that channel. And so in some companies, they call that leads by channel. I know it's rocket science and how they come up with the terms, right? So leads by channel are super simplistic. And here's how it goes. Any leads that we have that fill out the information, we get their phone number, their name, their email, they express some sort of interest, that is a lead that we got from that channel. And usually we want to track 3 or 4 different channels. It could be maybe your website, or it could be social media marketing, it could be in-person events, networking groups, whatever those channels are, we want to track the leads by channel. Another thing we want to track is the conversion of those leads into booked appointments so that sales can sit down and talk to them. We're not to the customer yet. A lot of people jump straight from a lead to a customer, but there's something that happens in between, and that's the sales process. And so we don't want to skip over that. We don't want to assume that a lead's going to naturally just become a customer. They have to go through a sales workflow. That's why we have two distinct systems, the marketing funnel and the sales funnel that come together. And then with that, we want to see that cost per qualified prospect. So the money that you're spending on marketing, that's not only the money for the systems like the software, but it's also money for the people that are running those systems. And if you're spending any time in marketing, you get cost coded some of your time for that as well. So you put all that together and then you see what that total amount is per year. You see the number of qualified prospects that you got to book a sales call, and let's say that's 100 in a year. So if you got 100,000 that you've spent and you've got 100 qualified leads that came from that, that means you spent $1,000 per qualified prospect that came in. So we're going to track that over the year. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it close so that we understand what that cost is. All right, so we're starting to track those KPIs. That's leads generated by channel, that's cost per lead, that's their conversion into book calls. So you can just put those on a scorecard. Now, there may be others that you want to track. Just put them on a scorecard. And that scorecard is your KPI scorecard. Now, let's pivot to the sales system. Remember, we can't go from qualified prospect to client right away. There's a whole sales workflow that goes through. So let's focus just on the sales system. The sales system is all about the proper activities that lead to FU, follow-up. And you can put an R in front of it if it makes you feel comfortable, and that's radical follow-up. One of the KPIs that you should be tracking right away within your sales system is the leads followed up with in 24 hours. And so you get qualified prospects from your marketing vertical, but you want to make sure those prospects have been followed up within 24 hours or 2 hours or 1 hour, whatever your time frame is. That needs to be an element on your KPI scorecard. Another element on your KPI scorecard is the number of appointments that you actually had. So it's not just the appointments booked, that's what the marketing's looking at, but what about the appointments that you actually had? And then when you had those appointments, how many of those appointments converted into clients versus how many of those appointments converted into nurturing and follow-up? And so those are just some simple metrics to be able to put on your sales dashboard, to be able to match your marketing dashboard. But what good is a dashboard or a scorecard if you don't track it on a regular basis? So a best practice when you're talking about marketing and sales is to have a once weekly, agenda-driven, leader-led marketing and sales meeting. In fact, at the time of this recording, this afternoon here in about 3.5 hours, we'll be having our marketing and sales meeting. We do it every week. Ours is 45 minutes, highly agenda-driven, and we walk straight down the agenda and we review not only our goals, but also our KPI scorecards. If you boiled down your scorecard to two major metrics, number of qualified leads, number of those leads converted to sales. Like if you just boiled it down and that's all you looked at, that's a start. And so you can just start there to see where you're at in your marketing process and in your sales process. And this will give you the courage to understand and how to leverage KPIs. Why are we doing all of this? Because right now you're trying to run marketing and sales out of your head. We need to systematize how this looks so that we can understand where to aim our energy, our activity, our time, our resources. Now remember, one of the things that keeps KPIs from being effective is not having an ultimate goal or vision where we're going at. So right now what I want you to do is go in the description below, click the link to the video that I've put down there for you, and it will walk you through how to build a marketing and sales plan. That way you got the vision to aim towards so you can align your KPIs to make sure you get there. Marketing and sales can feel like chaos, and we are committed to try to liberate you from that chaos to make time for the things that matter most.